Hi everyone, here's the book chemist once again. I was recently blown away by The Sympathizer, the Pulitzer-winning novel by Viet Thanh Nguyen. It's an incredibly funny book. It's laugh out loud funny, which is a very good thing because it's also extremely dark. It is set during and after the fall of Saigon in 1975, and it touches upon some of the atrocities committed by all warring parties involved in the Vietnam War. I found this an extremely interesting read as somebody who is fascinated by revolutions, the French Revolution in particular, but revolutions more broadly speaking, because The Sympathizer asks many of the great historical questions related to these types of upheavals, these types of conflicts. Are all revolutions ultimately doomed to fail? Are they all bound to perpetrate exactly the same oppression and the same injustice that they were meant to supplant? When people are rising against foreign influence on their government, foreign influence on their land, are they always destined to perpetrate the same patterns of corruption, the same patterns that they inherited from these oppressive powers even after they ousted them? These are impossible questions, really, and the novel contemplates them very intelligently, both from a historiographic perspective, a culture's perspective, but also from the perspective of the people who experienced these historical conflicts, these historical events on their own skin. The novel offers a few beautiful insights into Vietnamese culture and into what life was like in the 1970s Vietnam. There is a long passage of stunning lyrical beauty about all the small and big things that the Vietnamese exiles miss about their homeland after they're forced to leave the country at the end of the war, because they were on the losing side of this civil war. I found it an incredibly moving passage, even and also because of its naked nostalgia. Us Italians have a long tradition of pining for Italy from far away, from a position of exile. I like that The Sympathizer also calls the Vietnamese the Italians of Asia, because their war songs are not bloody chants of destruction, but they're actually love songs. They're songs about leaving one's beloved to do what must be done. There is also a beautiful passage at one point in the book about fish sauce, this staple of Vietnamese cuisine and the cuisine of that side of Asia, which is delicious when integrated in recipes, but it stings to high heaven. It absolutely reeks. And I liked that passage very much. I thought it was a very interesting defense of this ingredient. I think part of the value in the way The Sympathizer talks about Vietnamese culture, both through these small details and in much broader terms, is that when we think about the Vietnam War, when we think about that period in history and that place in history, often we think about it as an American tragedy, or at least I have definitely been guilty of this, of considering it some kind of American war. But actually it was a Vietnamese tragedy. The Vietnamese were the people who had to bear the brunt of this devastating, cruel, horrifying conflict, even by the standards of conflicts at large. There's a long section in the book that is crucial in this sense, where the protagonist is trying to convince a Hollywood director, a fairly transparent stand-in for a Francis Ford Coppola sort of character. He is trying to convince this director, who is filming a war about the Vietnam War, to include some Vietnamese and give some of the Vietnamese people's perspectives on the war, because the director's original intention had been to just use them as background and present it all as just a purely American drama. The Sympathizer is a beautiful book about duality. The protagonist has a French father and a Vietnamese mother, and he is seen as foreign by basically everybody in his life. He is constantly called a bastard, which is the one insult that breaks his otherwise cool and composed facade and really drives him to anger. It's a beautiful book about having a somewhat split political commitment, even being somebody who is fascinated by seemingly contradictory ideologies. For instance, communism, but also American culture and even American individualism. The book itself is very much a fan letter and a love letter to Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. It also explores what it means to be torn between devotion to a country or a cause or an ideology and devotion to one's friends and one's brothers and the people in your life that you love and that you've sworn to defend and protect. All of these ambiguities, all of these contradictions are explored beautifully and fruitfully throughout the book, which is truly a treasure to explore. There's so much nourishment, so much beauty to be had here, both in its broader reflections and in the beauty of its sentences, of its prose, its jokes, its dark humor. It's a very Kafkaesque novel. It's also very eerie, at times even creepy, but it's also very insightful in a psychological, even in a confessional way. There are some passages on masturbation with clear echoes of Philip Roth's Porno's Complaint, which echo that book's humor in all the most outrageous and the most hilarious ways. I adored The Sympathizer. I couldn't recommend it more highly. It's nourishing and brilliant in all possible ways. I look forward to hearing what you thought of the novel. As always, let me know in the comments. Were you as impressed as I was? Were there certain aspects of it that you weren't sure about? Let me know in the comments. And thanks as always for watching the review. Bye everybody.